The night deepened over Baghdad, and the stars shimmered like jewels scattered across a velvet sky. The scent of cardamom and roasted lamb still lingered in Sindbad's grand hall, where the porter sat wide-eyed before his host. Sindbad the sailor reclined against his cushions, a smile of memory and melancholy upon his lips. "My friend," he said, "you have heard of my first voyage, and how the sea both tested and blessed me. I swore never again to leave the peace of my homeland. But fate, it seems, delights in the vows of men, for soon my restless heart betrayed me. For a season I knew peace. My house in Baghdad overflowed with comfort. My friends dined at my table, laughter filled the halls, and my coffers gleamed with the gains of past adventures. Yet the heart of a sailor is like the tide, never still for long. I walked the markets of Baghdad and lingered where sailors told their tales, of emerald isles, of beasts that spoke like men, of fortunes waiting beyond the horizon. Each word was a spark, and soon my old fire was aflame again. I swore to myself that this time I would sail not for greed, but for the joy of discovery. So I gathered my gold, purchased fine goods for trade, and joined a company of merchants bound south from Basra toward the isles of India and China. The sea welcomed me as an old friend, its breath warm upon the sails, its voice murmuring of fate yet unseen. For many days we prospered. The winds favored us, and our holds grew heavy with silk, ivory, and spice. Then one morning, a cry rose from the masthead, "Land ho!" A green island appeared, glittering with streams and trees heavy with fruit. The captain anchored near the shore, and we went ashore to rest and gather provisions. The air was scented with blossoms, the earth soft beneath my feet. I wandered inland, lulled by birdsong and the rustle of palms. When I returned at last to the beach, the sea stretched empty before me. The ship was gone. My companions, thinking all were aboard, had lifted the anchor and sailed away on a rising breeze. I called until my throat burned, but only the waves answered. Alone beneath the vast sky, I sank to my knees and knew despair. So once more was Sindbad left to the mercy of God and the endless sea. Days passed as I searched for food and shelter upon that lonely island. One noon, the ground beneath me turned pale and smooth like polished marble. Ahead stood a vast white dome glimmering in the sun. I approached in awe, for it was neither pearl nor palace, but an egg, greater in size than the house of a prince. Then I knew it, the egg of the rock, that giant bird whose wings could cast darkness over mountains. The tales spoke of its might and mystery, how sailors once vanished beneath its shadow and kingdoms trembled at its cry. I stared at the great egg and thought to myself, if this bird truly returns to its nest, perhaps it can carry me from this forsaken island. So I waited beside the egg until the sky dimmed and thunderous wings blotted out the sun. The rock descended, folding its enormous wings over its young. The island quaked beneath its weight, and I felt the wind of its breath as it settled to rest. When the great bird had settled over its nest, I waited until its eyes closed and its breath slowed like distant thunder. Then I took my turban, folded it into a thick cord, and wound it securely around my waist and the rock's mighty leg. I made sure the knots would hold, yet could be loosened swiftly when needed. At the first light of dawn, the rock stirred. Its wings unfolded like sails of a ship, vast and terrible. With a cry that split the heavens, it rose into the air, and I with it. The island fell away. The sea turned to a mirror of light, and clouds closed around us like smoke. The wind tore at my clothes and stung my face, yet my heart leapt between terror and awe. For what seemed an age, we soared above the world. Then, as the sun climbed, the rock descended toward a land of jagged stone and shadow. It alighted upon a high ridge and began to feast upon a monstrous serpent, its body thick as a palm trunk, its blood dark as ink upon the rocks. When the creature bent to feed, I loosed my turban from its leg, careful not to startle it. The moment my feet touched the ground, I rolled behind a crag and watched as the rock tore the serpent apart, then beat its wings and vanished once more into the clouds. When the bird was gone, I found myself on the edge of a deep valley, its cliffs so steep that no man could climb them. The ground below glittered strangely, as though strewn with stars. I climbed down carefully, driven by curiosity and thirst. When I reached the bottom, I gasped, for the earth was carpeted with diamonds, each larger than a walnut, shining in the dim light. But wonder soon turned to dread. All around the valley were the bones of giant serpents, their skulls piled high. From crevices in the cliffs came a hissing sound that froze my blood. The serpents still lived, sleeping by day, waking only when night fell. I realized then why no man returned from this place. The Valley of Diamonds was also the Valley of Death. For 2 days I wandered the valley, searching in vain for a way out. The cliffs rose sheer and smooth, impossible to climb, their peaks hidden by clouds. By day the sun blazed like fire upon the stones, and by night the earth itself seemed to breathe. That was when I saw them. From the shadows of the rocks, enormous serpents stirred, their scales glinting like bronze in the faint light. Their bodies were thick as the trunks of trees, coiled in pits among the bones of beasts they had devoured. I dared not move or breathe. It was said they fed on elephants, and I, a mere man, would be no more than a morsel. So I hid among the stones at night, trembling as the serpents stirred and hissed through the darkness, waiting for dawn to drive them back into their caves. For 2 days I lived like this, surviving on dew and scraps of fruit, praying for mercy. Then, on the morning of the 3rd day, something strange happened. A whole skinned ox carcass came tumbling down from the cliffs above and landed beside me. I stared in disbelief, thinking hunger had driven me mad. I recalled a tale I had once heard in Baghdad, that merchants cast entire carcasses into such valleys so that diamonds would cling to the flesh. When great birds, the rocks of the mountains, carried the meat away, the traders would later climb up and gather the gems from their nests. It was madness, but it was hope. I gathered as many diamonds as I could, pressing them into the folds of my garments, turban, and belt. Then I used my belt and a length of rope to fasten myself tightly beneath the ox carcass, praying that fate would have mercy. Moments later, the sky darkened. A shadow spread over the valley. With a cry that split the air, the mighty rock descended, and with a single sweep of its talons, it seized the carcass, and me with it, and carried us both into the sky. The world below turned to mist as the rock climbed higher and higher. My heart pounded like a drum. I dared not move, for one slip would send me plunging to my death. At last, the bird descended and landed upon a rocky mountain ledge. With a screech that split the sky, it dropped the carcass and began tearing at it with its beak. I waited for my chance, then rolled free, gasping for breath. Moments later, I heard human voices echoing through the rocks. Merchants appeared. the very traders who had thrown down the meat. They shouted and hurled stones to drive the bird away, then rushed forward to reclaim the carcass. Imagine their faces when, instead of bones or jewels, they found a living man crawling out from beneath the flesh. One cried out, "Praise be to God! He lives. Never has anyone escaped that cursed valley." They helped me to my feet, offering water and bread, astonished by my tale. When they learned I was from Baghdad, they welcomed me as a brother. In gratitude, I shared some of my diamonds with them, though I kept a few of the largest for myself, proof of the mercy that had spared me and the madness that had saved my life. From the mountains we traveled to the coast, where we found a port bustling with traders and sailors. I joined a ship bound for Basra, my heart overflowing with relief. Along the way, I sold a few of my gems for supplies, and soon my fortune surpassed even what I had lost in my first voyage. When at last the rivers of Mesopotamia appeared on the horizon, tears filled my eyes. Baghdad, my home, awaited me once more. My friends and kin rejoiced at my return. The poor came to my door, and I gave freely, for I had learned how swiftly fortune turns. I built new ships, gave alms to orphans, and held feasts for travelers, for I knew what it was to wander and hunger. Yet even as I celebrated, I could not forget the roar of the rock's wings, nor the glitter of those deadly diamonds beneath the bones of serpents. Sindbad the sailor paused, sipping from his golden cup as the porter listened, spellbound. "And thus, my friend," he said, "was my second voyage, more perilous than the first, yet rich in both treasure and wisdom. The sea is a teacher like no other. It humbles the proud and raises the desperate." The porter bowed deeply. "O master," he said, "your tale fills the heart with wonder and fear. You have truly wrestled with destiny itself." Sindbad smiled gently. "Come again tomorrow, and I shall tell you of my third voyage, when even greater marvels awaited me beyond the edge of the world." And so ended the tale of Sindbad's second voyage, a journey of cunning, danger, and divine deliverance. But the saga does not end here, for beyond the waves lie lands where men are giants, where jewels are guarded by fire, and where fate once more tests the courage of Sindbad the sailor. Join us again for the third voyage, the next chapter in this timeless epic of adventure and wonder. Subscribe now to continue the journey. The sea still calls, and Sindbad's legend is far from over.